Hey up, it's Klye here. I recently got the Platinum Trophy for Fallout 4, again, this time on the PlayStation 5 version, and to be honest, it wasn't as fun as I remembered it being. So to try and forcibly inject some joy back into the game, as I usually do, I've decided to do a little challenge run. Fallout 4 is the only game in the series where your weapons don't break, and I find that very strange. These things have been living through a nuclear war, so I'm going to take that to the extreme, and I'm giving every weapon one shot before it breaks. I am on the PlayStation 5 version, so the mods are kinda limited, so this will have to be self-imposed. Every gun gets one shot, and every melee weapon gets one swing. When I use them once, I have to open up the Pip-Boy and drop them on the floor, and that's that. Once I've used them, they're gone for good, and I have to find a replacement. I'll also not be allowing myself to fist any of the enemies or use throwables, because I could just break a weapon and then spec into unarmed and fist everyone, so that'd be a little bit too easy. I have to use a weapon to inflict damage. With all that said, it's time to make a very accurate depiction of myself and then escape the vault. In the vault you have the rad roaches, but you can avoid those. You can also find a security baton and a couple of 10mm pistols, so I'm definitely going to be taking those. I got out of the vault and made a mad dash to the Your Special book that's located in your old home. The reason for this is because I'm going to do a little glitch, mostly because I want a couple of perks early on to make this not as torturous. I could have gone overboard here and just maxed all my stats to 10, however I felt like that might have been going a little bit too far, considering I still get to use weapons, so it's not like it's going to be impossible to do, so I kind of kept it just to as many as I needed. I'll explain how to do this just in case you want to try this for yourself. It's an old glitch, but a good glitch. So you want to pick up the Your Special book and put a point into whatever you want. You then move over to the weapons workbench, open up the workshop menu and scrap this duct tape for its adhesive. You then use the weapons bench, rename your 10mm pistol to a lowercase y. And for safety, you can back out of the bench and make a quick save. This next bit is a little bit fiddly, so I would highly recommend doing that. Open up the weapons workbench and go to your Y weapon. And now you want to press and hold scrap and modify at the same time. So for me on PlayStation, that is X and square. Here's the hard part. You want to let go of modify a millisecond before you let go of scrap. And if the stars align, you'll have the scrap menu on the screen. If not, you can just reload your save and try again. If it works, you then confirm the scrap and you should see the Your Special book. From this point, you press right on the D-pad and you pick the first upgrade. Once it's confirmed, you can back out of everything and then drop the book on the floor. You can actually do this glitch at any stage in the game, however you will need a practically empty inventory besides the book, so it can be a little bit trickier. Now that we've modified the book, it's time for the second part of the glitch, the Duplication Glitch. Now this works for all items that can be scrapped, so if you're ever struggling for certain materials, then this is a great way to get them. All you have to do is go into the workshop mode, hover over your item, press scrap just a fraction of a second before you press and hold down the store button. So for me, I tap square and immediately hold down circle. It can take a few tries, but this is completely safe to mess up since you can just cancel the scrap and say no to store and then do it again until it works. If you get the timing right and you're holding down circle or B or whatever the key might be for you, you'll see an overlapping menu, and from here you can both scrap and store the item, which duplicates it. Since I duped the book, I can go into the workshop, take the book out and then drop it on the floor, and it's now readable again, which lets me increase another special stat. To do it again, all we have to do is open up the workshop menu, tap square and hold circle just a millisecond after, repeat the dupe over and over again until you're happy with your stats. As I say, I only put a few extra points into perception for the VATS accuracy. I got my agility to 7 so I can make use of the ninja perk for that sweet bonus damage. And I got my luck to 5 for idiot savant since my XP gains in this playthrough will be very low. This did cost me a gun, but I'd say that the trade was worth it. Although I am curious to know how you'd build your character for this challenge. You know, like what stats and perks would you pick and Which quest lines would you take? Which faction would you side with? By no means am I a Fallout expert, so I'd like to see how you go about doing this. Maybe give me some tips for the next challenge run, perhaps? Watching this back, I think maybe I could have gone with more perception and more intelligence so I could unlock doors and hack certain things as well. Either way, for the most part though, I will be trying to avoid combat for obvious reasons, and most of my time will be spent trying to find weapons to hoard for the moments where combat does occur. I walked up to the Minutemen, but I am going to be skipping them for now. For one, there's a Deathclaw to fight, which, given my very limited arsenal, I think that would be quite difficult. But I did hang around the entrance of the museum so that Preston could kill off a few of the raiders and I could nick their weapons, along with a laser musket. I actually decided to go straight to the Brotherhood of Steel, and one of the reasons for this is because Paladin Danse can carry me for quite a long time. And when we're up against the Institute, he will wipe them all out with ease, and I'll just be able to scavenge all of the weapons. Obviously, I'm not going to be using companions for this playthrough, because I could quite easily just give a companion a good weapon and then sit back while they fight. But if you think about it, Danse is the leader of this quest, so technically, I'm his companion. You know, the little rat in the background who's crouching and just picking up all the weapons from the corpses. You don't get any XP from Danse killing everything, so I am going to be quite underleveled for a while. There's also a good section where you can toast a bunch of the synths, and that provided me with lots of weapons. I do have to say that Fallout 76 has its problems, but being able to see and access all the nearby corpses to loot is a great addition, rather than having to run to each individual corpse separately like you do in the other games. I don't know, maybe that's just me being lazy. Yeah, probably. I also went back and picked up the junk jet weapon, just for a goof. After our time with Danse, he gave me a weapon and I checked my inventory. Oh my gravy, tons of weapons, this is going to be easy. I made my way to Diamond City to go through all that rigmarole and then start the quest to find Mercer Frey. There's a bit of drama near the noodles, but I'm just here for the pistol. Now, there's a lot of enemies between me and Detective Valentine, so this is going to be a little bit tricky, although I must have smacked this guy so hard, my game crashed. Thanks, Todd. Next time around, I used my head for once and snuck around them and waited for them to come to me, one by one, for the sneak attacks. There's a bunch of dudes in the next area, so I stuck to the shadows, and it was really tense. I've never played a Fallout game in this way before, so it was quite interesting changing up the playstyle so drastically. Normally I'm more of a buns glazing type of guy. The entrance to the vault was guarded by 3 goons, and I'm not really too sure if I could get there without a stealth boy. One of the goons separated further than the others, so I took him out with a bladed tire iron. The other 2 weren't so generous, so I had to wait and then use one of my laser rifles for a sneaky headshot. And after that, I waited for the ghoul to forget his friend's head just exploded so I could crack my knuckles on him. I got inside the vault and I had to use a lot of weapons to get past some guards. Every dude drops a weapon in here though, so it's not too much of a loss, especially if I can get the one-shot sneak attack. Unfortunately, I got caught and tried to VAT some people, and then I remembered something. When you use an automatic weapon in VATs, it fires in spurts. That's not one shot. I decided to reload and only use automatic weapons manually from this point. Nick passes a speech check on this Dino fella, and then I just hid under the stairs so I could wait for him to walk past. I hacked the terminal and I saved Nick Valentine. I also picked up the speech bobblehead for no real reason, and then dropped some heavy weapons because my pockets were getting a little bit full here. I mostly just dropped the automatics. Now, getting through this next bit purely by stealth seems near impossible without a stealth boy or a maxed out stealth or some suppressed weapons. The guards in here are interesting, to say the least, and it makes it very difficult to know when it's safe. So I decided just to take a shot and then rely on Nick. You know, he's here, he might as well back me up. You know, I did help a little bit though, mostly only because Nick went down and I kind of had no other choice, we probably would have died otherwise. But the key takeaway is, I did help. These goons were flapping their gums about something, but I had my eye on a pistol that was just randomly laying on the floor. I passed the easy speech check with Darla, and Skinny Malone let us go, and I made sure to grab that pistol on the way out. We can now go through the whole thing with Nick to find Kellogg, but I just ran right to him, because why not? I also hacked the terminal to get the robot to give me a hand, but this place is riddled with synths and turrets. It's very dangerous, and they were often dropping automatic weapons which I couldn't pick up. Well, I could, but it's not as powerful and I can't use VATS, so I kept that to a minimum. For some reason though, when I destroyed this turret, the robot I activated turned on me, and then he made my recording go all wonky. I don't know why this happens sometimes. Oh, I mean the wonky footage thing, not the robot betrayal. Although I do have to say I got a pretty good moment here where a synth ran into this lift with me, and I tried to VATS him over and over again with the bat, but it just kept cancelling for some reason. I think maybe it's because I'm in too close of a proximity or something. I don't know. Because I couldn't get the sneak attacks, I ended up using far too many weapons on just this one dude. Well, saying that, I used far too many weapons in this area in general. But I did pick up the energy weapon bobblehead, so I better start getting some crits to make use of that. I snuck into Kellogg's room and I used the Righteous Fury that I got from Danse to benefit from the sneak attack, the critical damage, and the little bit of bonus I got from the bobblehead, and it didn't even half him. So I had to run away and then pick off his synths one by one. I then decided to use the laser musket I got from outside the museum, and I blasted Kellogg into ash. Why did that do more damage than a sneak attack critical? Maybe the Minutemen are the strongest faction, I don't know. This whole section left me incredibly low on weapons, but there's plenty of time for me to scavenge some more before the next big fight, I think. Right after Kellogg we see the arrival of the Pridwin, but this made me reflect on my choices, and I decided I'm going to change my mind on who I'm going to side with. I'm not sure if you can tell, but I was kinda just making this run up as I went. Yeah, you can absolutely tell. Anyway, I went back to Nick to progress the main quest. We did the whole brain dance thing, and then we had one final moment with Kellogg. To me, and to many other people I think, it's sad that Kellogg was forgotten about so quickly. This dude was around for over 100 years, and he is the catalyst for this game's events. In a way. And then he just gets popped, and that's it. You can't talk him out of it, you can't inquire, he just dies. Thanks, Todd. Although I do appreciate that in some ways, because it kind of maybe defies expectation that the big bad is actually just some guy. I don't know, you can see it in many different ways, I suppose. I just wanted to know more about him, because he's clearly been around for a long time and probably has some stories. Same with these ghouls, you know what I mean? They've been around for ages. Let me hear their stories. Moving on from that sour note, it's time to find Virgil in the glowing sea. And I made sure to pick up some Radex for this specific moment because I'm not going to wear a radiation suit. I've not been picking up armor either because, if I'm thinking that weapons degrade, surely armor should degrade as well. So yeah, I've also just been wearing the Vault suit. Alright, well, while I'm just running here, I would like to say that I did quite enjoy Fallout 76 giving you mutations for getting irradiated, rather than just lowering your health. To me, that made radiation more interesting. Speaking of radiation, I'd love to play a Fallout game as a ghoul, or even a super mutant. Every Fallout game, you're a human, but ghouls and mutants are treated so much more differently, so I think it could make for quite interesting repeat playthroughs perhaps. I guess certain vendors wouldn't deal with you, or maybe they just increase their prices, and some people would probably just outright attack on sight. I imagine you'd have access to different perks and probably different factions as well. I don't know, I just like the ability to vary the way I play, I suppose. I know there's lots of mods out there for the PC versions that probably maybe do that, so maybe one day I'll have to get into PC stuff just to experience that kind of thing. I think most of all I'd like to experience Fallout 1 and 2 with modern graphics and gameplay. I love the world of Fallout 1 and 2 because it's kind of more like a horror in a way, but I'm just really crap at the isometric stuff. Anyway, enough gab, we're at Virgil and he told us about a Corsair that we need to kill to get access into the Institute. But this Corsair is one tough cookie and the building he is in is riddled with enemies. As I say, after the fight with Kellogg, I was quite low on guns. Lucky for me, Trash Can Carla was at Sanctuary and I bought all of her weapons. They're not brilliant, but they should be enough. Also, interestingly, on the PlayStation 5 version of Fallout, it says LT and RT in the barter menu, instead of L2 and R2. LT and RT are the Xbox buttons. Silly Bethesda. Interesting little thing here. If I manage to save Preston and the gang, the next part of the main quest will be easier. I do however have to kill a lot of raiders and a Deathclaw, but thanks to Carla, I think maybe I can do this. I may have missed an easy shot, but ignore that, I took out the rest of them with ease. After a little chat with Preston, it's time to see what I can do about the Deathclaw, and obviously I'm not going to use the rusted up power armour or the minigun. One shot with a minigun is hardly worth the spin up time, and of course in VATS it's a big spurt, so that's a no-go. Initially we do have to fend off these raiders, but Preston can do that. Eventually. Bloody hell, there's no wonder most of his group died. This took forever. But here comes the big obstacle, the Deathclaw. I did manage to get it to chase me into the building right next to Preston, and in here, you're almost completely safe. Preston's right over there and he can shoot the Deathclaw for me, and as you can see, this is going to take quite some time. At one point, I think he even ran out of ammo because he stopped shooting the thing. Luckily, if you let the Deathclaw run away and then come back, Preston will have more ammo. I wanted to be a cheeky little shit and stealth attack it with a pull cue for the kill. A little bit of a kill steal, I know. But it span around when I was sneaking up on it, and I went into VATS and it took a swipe at me, but I think I ducked it. I'm not sure. So I quickly dropped the pull cue, swapped it for another one, got another hit in VATS, and managed to take out the Deathclaw. I may have then just stood there in shock for a little moment. I mean, that thing could have easily crushed me right then and there, especially at this low level. I could probably have been one shot, and that is why we put points into luck. Now we can save Preston and the gang, and I can explain why I did this now and not later on. For those of you who don't know, Mama Murphy, the old lady in Preston's group, she has psychic powers. Chem-induced psychic powers, the best kind. And if you go to her before the Corsa quest, she will actually give you its recall code, which completely nullifies the boss fight. I still had to fight the gunners in this area, but I've got enough weapons from that last encounter to take this on. Well, saying that, it was tough, and it did take me a long time, and I may have died a couple times, but don't tell anyone. They also tend to drop a lot of automatic weapons, which isn't great given my perk allocations, but it wasn't completely bad. Looking back on this, I could have maybe possibly fought the Corsa, but that Mama Murphy trick just never gets mentioned in any of the challenge runs I've watched so far, so I thought I'd get it in here. You know, I'm all about the cheese, I'm all about the tips and tricks, that's me. So here you go, Mama Murphy can disable the boss fight for you. This dude generally does have a lot of damage and health, and he can go invisible, so yeah, maybe it's best not to risk it. After I saved Jenny, I picked up the Fat Man, and I'm sure that'll come in handy very soon. Now that we have the Corsa chip, I need to get that deciphered, and that requires going to the railroad. I always found this part a bit strange because the other factions have their own tech specialists that could probably do this, but oh well, we need to go to the railroad. And the password to get into the railroad HQ is railroad. Very secure. I am only here just to get the Corsa chip analysed, but I will not be joining them. Not for this playthrough anyway. In fact, I'll be joining the Minutemen, and the reason for this is because it seems like they're the path of least resistance. If you side with anyone else, they want you to attack the opposite faction, which involves a lot of unnecessary combat. But before I can join the Minutemen, I need to do a few of their quests. This does involve combat, but generally speaking, not much of it. I'm not too sure how this works, but I think the Minutemen quests are randomised or based on level or something, I'm not quite sure. But for this quest, I got sent to a small building and I only had to kill a few normal raiders and then the boss raider. Very easy. After that, I got promoted to General, which is quite the leap, but there we go. But Preston still needed more help, as always. This time, I had to rescue someone who'd been kidnapped, but lucky for me, you can just sort of walk in and talk to the prisoner, set them free, and then run off and hope for the best. After that malarkey, now we can get Sturgis to give me all the details on the relay and I can put it together. Turns out the only thing I was missing for this was some ceramic and some screws, so I did the dupe trick just to get some extra materials. We can now teleport straight into the Institute and go and meet Father. Now I was contemplating popping him here, but that would induce a lot of combat in here and out in the world. So for now, I just went about doing the Institute meet and greet so I could unlock the fast travel. You know, I quite like the Institute in a way. It's like an invasion of the body snatchers kind of thing, where you're never really sure if the person you're talking to is the real person or some clone? I don't know, I find the idea of synths quite interesting, and I think it could have been fleshed out a bit more. To me, it's a really good concept, but I think the message is a little bit too on the nose. Right, after all that gabbing, I went back to the Minutemen and Preston wanted me to do more settlement stuff. What a shock. But it wasn't that hard, just a couple of baddies. The real fun is when he wants me to take back the castle. This area is crawling with Mirelurks. So what I did was I had the Minutemen set up a firing line while I ran in and baited the Mirelurks towards us, and I think that worked quite well. Well, it worked for the most part. It seems we lost some soldiers, and relying on Preston has never been a good idea. What I did is I sat on this awning for ages until, for some reason, Preston got his arse into gear and he picked up a flamer of his own volition. I didn't even know he could do that. He then ran around and killed all the Mirelurks. Well, eventually. And to top it all off, there's only a bloody Mirelurk queen to kill. You know, nothing too serious. It's nothing that the fat man I picked up earlier couldn't handle. Right then, now that this area is secure, all I have to do is wait a few days until the next Minutemen quest is available. I skipped ahead a few days and then came back and had a little chat with Ronnie. She is a combat veteran, so she's going to be proper hard and provide us with a lot of support. We have to go underneath the castle to get to the armory, and there is a huge robot at the end of this area, but I'm sure Ronnie, with her combat expertise, will be able to take him out for me. Or she could run away and cower. I used a sneak attack missile on it, and it did piss all damage. I have to say that this thing took quite a few weapons off of me, mostly because Ronnie was hiding the whole time. She even tried to come in for the kill steal, but she got absolutely owned. The daft old bint. I managed to finish it off with a shotgun to the spine, and finally, Ronnie led us to the armory. In terms of weapons lost and gained, I think I lost more than I gained here. I spent a little while improving the castle's defences for the next quest because you need to have a certain defence threshold before it can trigger. I didn't put any turrets down though, I just put down the little defence posts. I don't know, I think me using a turret that I've crafted would technically be a weapon. I know it's not me firing the thing, but without my intervention it wouldn't have been there, so I don't know, how do you feel about that? Is that a weapon? Yeah, either way, I didn't use any. After I'd made sure the castle was defended, I had to go and become an enemy of the Institute. And because the sole survivor never got a chance to play catch with his son, I thought it would be quite fitting if he finally got that chance. I may have been slightly aggressive with the throw, however. Now that the Institute is against us, it's time to trigger the final act of the game. I went to talk to Preston to trigger the final act, and he told me to go and recruit more settlements. What a surprise. I mean, thankfully, I just had to take on a few super mutants, not too bad, and they often drop melee weapons and rifles too, which is very nice. And after all that, finally, the settlement stuff is done. And personally, for me, I like the settlement stuff. Maybe not the going and saving them and stuff, but building a settlement, I quite like that. I really enjoy building stuff. Meanwhile, back at the castle, it's time for the Institute to bring the fight to us. I have an army of Minutemen standing by, waiting to take these guys on, and this is going to be so easy. And everyone got vaporized in seconds. Mercifully, there's a few Minutemen who are invincible, so they should be able to handle this, especially now that Preston has a weapon that doesn't take 3 weeks to fire. Although admittedly, yes, this did take a very long time, so I mostly just went and hid in the corner, and I went off to plant some onions. And no, that is not a euphemism. Although it could be. What could plant some onions be a euphemism for? I'll leave that up to you. When I returned from my gardening adventures, Preston had defeated all the synths. But strangely enough, he was aggroed to me. I have no idea why. Maybe because of my cowardice? I've never played this way before, or even seen this reaction unless you attack him yourself, so that was fun. What I did was I just ran away and then got back to Sanctuary and passed a few days just to see if Preston would cool off, and apparently that fixed it. It just works. I was kind of hoping that this whole fight would have left a lot of weapons on the floor, so I had a little looky-loo. And yeah, there was a few, but not many. I think a lot of them probably despawned, which is not ideal. But it's still okay, I got a few guns. After that, we can take the fight to the Institute, and I just got to get in, and I have to say, getting into the Institute was Fun. I didn't even die, honest. But enough about that, I summoned in all my Minutemen and it's time for the final fight. This area is riddled with enemies, so I mostly just hid away, like I usually do. But I did try to get in some shots when I could. You know, this is the final fight, so I thought maybe I should use the weapons I had, because there's no point keeping them. Although my damage was kind of poo. And sometimes my stealth attacks wouldn't proc. I'm not quite sure why that was. Maybe because the scientists were nearby and they might have been affecting my stealth? Could be. I'm not sure. The reactor room was quite tough. There was a lot of explosions and a lot of high-level enemies, but I did manage to use up pretty much all of my weapons here. I stuck the bomb on the reactor and then decided to save little Synth Sean for whatever reason. And then before blowing up the Institute, I took out Kellogg's pistol, aimed it towards Diamond City and shot that thing because I never got a chance to use it, so I thought, well, here's my chance, I suppose. And just like that, the game is done. You can in fact beat Fallout 4 if every weapon breaks after one shot. But you probably knew that already. You can beat this game in loads of different ways. This was just for a goof. Honestly, I'd love to try out some more weird challenge runs like this, so if you've got any ideas for the rest of the series, please do let me know. And if you've got any challenge runs for other games, I always like to know what other people might think would be fun. But I do have to say, playing this way was quite interesting, and I liked it. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please do leave a like if you like, and as always, take care. I also hacked the terminal to get this Protectron. Fucking hell. Oh, for fuck's sake. Protectron. Yeah. I also hacked the terminal to get this Protectron. Protectron. I also hacked the terminal to get the Protectron. I also hacked the terminal to get the... I might just say robot.